Now joining us on the guest line is a Super Bowl MVP, had one of the better stories in the NFL this past season, quarterbacking the Cleveland Browns, and that, of course, is Joe Flacco, kind enough to join us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Joe, first and foremost, congratulations on an incredible season. Thanks so much for doing this, and how you been?
Yeah, can't complain. Wish we were still going, but doing well.
When the season finally ended, and you're right, you had the whole story, you go to Cleveland, you have the immediate success, you go into Houston. I know the playoff game didn't go your way, but when you have to put it into words, what you guys were able to accomplish this year and this journey and the ride that it was for you, how do you kind of do that?
Yeah, listen, it's always a lot of fun when you go out there and you're able to win some football games and do it with a bunch of guys that, are awesome to be around. So I think anytime you play this game, you want to give yourself a chance, and that means get to the playoffs and see where you can go from there. It's always disappointing when it ends so abruptly. Kind of no matter how the few weeks have gone before that. So it's always tough to kind of look back and maybe initially see all the positives, but it was a lot of fun.
You know what you're capable of, and you've been doubted a lot. But going into that locker room and quickly developing that chemistry, how did you guys be able to do that? Because that was the most impressive part to me. It was you bring a new guy in, and then boom, pretty quickly, you guys are starting to play at a very high level.
I think it's just a credit to the guys that were in that room, credit to the coaches for the way they put things together. But you could tell that it was a pretty tight knit locker room as soon as you walk in there. And I think just it's never easy to step into a new situation, and it's never easy for a team to kind of welcome a guy that shows up so late like I did. But I think a lot of credit goes to those guys for being able to do that and make it as seamless as possible.
Talking to Joe Flacco right now. I know you want to keep on playing for a long time, I would imagine. How much longer, though, do you think you keep on playing in the NFL?
It's impossible to put numbers on it because you just never know. It's not always in your control. I mean, look, it could have easily not gotten a call the last couple months of the season and been sitting here kind of thinking, all right, that was it, I guess, So it's tough to kind of put a number on it and try to look at those things. You have to, just like each week when you're in the season, you have to look at it week to week. You have to just kind of do the same thing with how you go, and keep the off season's the off season. Let's focus on that. Let's make sure you're in shape to go somewhere, and you just take it day by day and see where it goes. I know I want to play, and I want to do it as long as I can and feel capable of doing that. Other people don't always see it how you see it. I mean, obviously the person involved probably sees, I was talking to somebody recently, and it's like, I'm probably going to think I can still play when I'm 55, 60 years old. I mean, obviously that's not going to be the case, so obviously there's a point where like your expectations and how you feel about yourself don't necessarily match up with the reality, but I don't necessarily think that's the case. Even though there's still going to be some doubters, there's always going to be that. But we'll see. We'll see when that happens.
Would you go to a place where you would be a backup? Like if it's not guaranteed that you're going to be a starter, is that something that you would still do and see how it plays out?
Listen, once again, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to, each opportunity in each situation, it's not as easy as just saying yes to that or no to that. I think each little thing, each little team or whatever, if let's say I have a couple opportunities, they're all going to be different in their own way. And like this year, I could tell you that I didn't have to make that decision. Like, hey, would I go take an opportunity somewhere to be a backup and not really knowing how good that team is going to be and what my role is going to be? I would have liked to tell you that I would have been able to turn something like that down this spring and summer. But I don't know if I would have been able to turn it down. I would have viewed it as an opportunity, and I would have probably went and taken that and seen where it takes me. But deep down, I did want to be able to turn those kind of things down and wait for the right opportunity. In the case of this year, it was kind of done for me. I didn't have any opportunities, so it wasn't like I had to say no to anybody. That I was at home. I was doing my work. I was working out and waiting for a call. So I do think there is positives to sitting around this year. There was positives to being available when I was available, as opposed to being locked down on another team. I think hopefully my opportunities will be a little bit different this year in terms of, getting some calls here and there. I mean, you never know. And I'm going to have to assess each one of those for what it is and go from there.
Joe Flacco here with us. What was it like for you mentally? Because I always think that is so tough on a player when all they know their entire life is football. And then you went obviously through a few month period where you didn't know if you were going to play again. So how was that mentally for you?
I think it was strangest probably when training camp was starting up and I wasn't going anywhere. It's been, over 20 years where I've been doing that, 25 years. I've been going to a training camp in August in some capacity and getting ready to play a football season. So I think that was probably the point where it became the most real. And then from then on out, it really wasn't as big of a deal. I think you kind of get over that in your head that you're not going somewhere, and you get back into the mindset of just kind of making sure you're prepared if that day comes.
Being in the same locker room this year as Kevin Stefanski, a locker room run by Kevin Stefanski, he was entering the season on the hot seat, and clearly he's going to be back next year, and he coached his ass off, and there's a good case for him to win another Coach of the Year award. We'll see what happens in a few weeks when they announce the awards. But what did you take away being around a lot of good coaches from your time with Kevin Stefanski?
Yeah, such an interesting league, right? Like how, 1 second everybody's super high and then the next second everybody's super low. And it's just not necessarily the reality of, how it works. You have to give people time and, you have to, it's a hard league, and you're not always going to, you're not going to be 13-4 and 15-2 every single year. And, even 11-6, it's just not that easy. It's not the way it works. Every year is a new year, and Kevin's an unbelievable coach, and he's done an unbelievable job. I think this year was a good year for him to prove that, but I think that's what it proves, that he's good. If he's somebody that you like and you know that he's good and you know he can grow, you understand that in 5 years from now, it might not be the same, but who you have in him. I think he's shown everybody that. I think he's had the time now to show everybody that he's capable of doing it at the highest level. And now it's just a matter of having the pieces and making sure everything goes the right way. But he's definitely a guy that you want, in that locker room behind the scenes and running the show.
I know he was hurt, but what was your relationship like with Deshaun Watson? Just wondering.
Yeah, when Deshaun was around, it was great. I think even from afar watching it on TV when he wasn't in there playing and TJ was playing or Dorian was playing, I think he did a great job of being excited for everything that was going on, even though he wasn't the guy at the moment.
Are you confident that he could? I know it's going to be awkward because whenever someone uses the word elite with you, that's always polarizing. So that wasn't intentional. But are you confident that one day Deshaun Watson could be an elite quarterback again?
Oh, for sure. Listen, I mean, I still feel like he's not been in the league that long, and for him, it's just about staying healthy and getting back out there and getting a full season under his belt.
I didn't mean to do that, but the elite conversation with you is always an interesting one. Like, how do you personally take that? Like, you won a Super Bowl, you won a Super Bowl MVP, so bleep anybody that doesn't want to give you the credit, but that's always something that still to this day, like I was having fun with it when you were playing. I'm like, elite Joe Flacco is back, and everyone was running with it.
Yeah, it's just that's the biggest thing is like, listen, I don't take offense to very much. So it's like, it can be taken however you want it, but I just kind of let people have fun with it. Ultimately, that's what it is. It's people kind of having fun and just creating some kind of story out of nothing or, whatever it may be. So that's kind of how I treat it. Listen, I mean, it's all over the place. As soon as I start playing, I'm like, listen, I've had, everywhere from people in the media talking about it to my buddies. And, when my buddies are messing with me about it, talking to me about it, it's usually it's usually making fun of me. That's or awesome. Trying to get some kind of reaction out of me, which is great. I'm sure my kids will get involved in it at some point. It was just like, it was one of those big topics of conversation, 12 years ago. And it just kind of grew into what it is. And, like I said, I let people have fun with it, no matter what they truly mean, the true meaning behind it. Who really cares? If they're kind of shitting on me, okay, have fun with it. If they actually mean it, have fun with it.
Yeah, Joe Flacco here with us. Absolutely love that answer. That was awesome. Let me ask you about Jared Goff, because that's someone that, right, has been disrespected, has been to a Super Bowl, could be to another Super Bowl after this weekend. With the way that Jared Goff is covered, do you see some of yourself just wondering in Jared Goff?
I don't know. It's probably tough to look at yourself and compare to others. So it's probably easier for somebody like you to kind of be a little bit more removed from that situation and look at it. But I will say, I mean, to go to another team and to kind of do it the way that it happened with him, and yeah, obviously there's that like sense of there's that feeling that comes around that, whatever that may be, however people feel about it. It's pretty impressive for him to stay, confident and and all the stuff that goes along with that mentally. To deal with that mentally, I'm sure he was excited on some level, like as much as other people wanted to talk about this and that about the switch from the Rams to Detroit. I'm sure he was excited on a level to kind of get into a situation where he probably felt like it was a new beginning, and the organization was around him and all that. So I'm sure he had some help along the way, but it's still impressive to mentally kind of go from one team to the other, especially when you did take that team that you were at to the Super Bowl and now kind of be able to get right back to that point again. It's not easy to win in this league. And for him to be able to do it in multiple places definitely says a lot about him.
I know what you just did this past season with Cleveland was so phenomenal, as Joe Flacco is here with us for a few more moments on CBS Sports Radio. And I know that the Ravens were an enemy this year, but you'll always be remembered as a Baltimore Raven winning that Super Bowl, that being where the bulk of your career was. To see what John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson are doing this year, just what kind of emotion does it elicit from you?
I don't know if I'm too emotional about it. I mean, but it's not surprising. I mean, they're always a good football team. I mean, what's their, it's the typical formula for them. They're a physical football team that wants to run the ball, and they're going to play phenomenal defense. Besides a year here and there, that's what they do, and you expect them to be around at this point in the year.
Who do you think wins this weekend, by the way, in both these games?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Baltimore is the easy choice for people, and San Francisco is the easy choice for people. But at this point in the year, man, you have four good teams going at it. I mean, Kansas City's been there every single year. It's just so funny. I mean, how week to week it is. A few weeks ago, everybody's super down on what kind of chances they have, but they're right back there. I think both of those defenses are obviously capable, so it's just going to be a matter of which one can kind of, show up on Sunday and be able to kind of get some pressure on the quarterback, maybe cause a turnover here or there. And then I think the San Francisco Detroit game, I think San Francisco is a completely different team when they get pressure on the quarterback, when they don't get pressure on the quarterback. And I think that's probably what it's going to come down to. Can Detroit get their back going? I mean, it's fun to kind of, you don't. It's funny when you're like somebody like me. Like, I do watch games, but you don't necessarily get to get a full feel for how everybody is. But last week, watching the Lions go, I mean, if they get their back going, he looked pretty explosive. So if they can get pressure, if they can also get pressure on the Niners, and they can get their back going offensively, like just have him pop a big couple plays, then listen, those guys are riding high right now. Detroit's behind them, and they're riding some momentum. So you never know how these things are going to go. It's impossible to call them. Like I said, the easy choices are Baltimore and San Francisco, but who knows?
Last thing I'll ask you, when you look back at that Super Bowl that you won, it was a great Super Bowl, right? You guys had the big lead, then the 49ers took it back, but you guys were able to get the job done at the end. I always wonder, and I've never had a chance to ask this to you, what did you do coming out of halftime when you had the whole blackout situation, when some people believe that was intentional by the NFL, by the way?
Yeah, right. Well, I don't really remember. I don't think I did much. Obviously we tried. There's probably a time where our strength and conditioning guys gathered us up and made sure that we were doing something to stay loose, especially because it wasn't long after halftime, and it's an extended halftime as it is. But ultimately, we didn't know how long it was going to last. So we're kind of just hanging out, getting ready for the lights to get turned back on, if I remember right. And then It obviously lasted probably a little bit longer than anybody thought. So it's tough to go back there and put myself in that situation and remember exactly what we did. But like I said, I think it was mostly just kind of standing around waiting for some kind of information on what was going to happen next.
He is Joe Flacco. Actually, Joe, I just have to ask you about this. The finalists for the Comeback Player of the Year award came out yesterday. I know you won, right, the highest honor that anyone could win in the NFL, and that's Super Bowl MVP. But it's yourself, Damar Hamlin, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, and then Tua Tagovailoa. How'd you kind of process that one the other day?
Well, I don't necessarily know what I'm coming back from. I would say most of the guys on that list, I'm not sure what we're coming back from, so that's probably my initial reaction. But I think anytime that you're, getting recognized in this league for, playing well, I guess, it can be flattering. So it's a cool group to be a part of, that's for sure. But yeah, that's my initial thought is I'm not necessarily, I'm just coming back from, being old and, not being on a team for a couple months. So who knows?
Would that be bizarre if you won the award with the way that you just laid it out?
Of course. I think we could probably go through like I said, most of the guys on that list besides Damar. Um, I don't know if we're necessarily coming back from anything, but
so do you think Damar should win it? Is that what you're saying? Just wondering.
For sure. I don't know how many snaps he played, but I just think mentally to get yourself back to the point where you feel comfortable doing that kind of thing. And, obviously the physical part stands for, you don't need any explanation there, but I think mentally to get yourself ready to go back out there and feel good doing that, what we do, especially at his position, is pretty cool.